Thank you for staying with us. Upon assumption into office, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, is not resting on his oars as he has begun putting in place plans to sanitize Abuja and make it safe for residents. While announcing his short, medium and long-term plans at a press conference, he said he will reposition the FCT to be among the best cities in the world and prioritize infrastructural development, demolish all illegal buildings and structures. He also said that efforts will be made to revive Abuja Railway transit to improve access to public transportation. Like other ministers, he made his promises, which Nigerians, especially residents of the FCT, are hoping will become a reality.
While addressing a press conference shortly after the swearing-in ceremony at the presidential villa, Mr. Wike promised to sanitize and secure the country's capital. The former governor of Rivers State noted that despite being a member of the opposition party, the People's Democratic Party backed his acceptance of the ministerial appointment. He also told the department under the ministry to map out strategies to move the FCT forward, while promising to uphold the trust President Bola Tinubu has in him.
You don't like those who will step on toes. I will step on toes. Because you cannot be claiming FCT is not working. When you have not done your own part, do your own part, then be able to say, look, of all the money we have been paying, what are they using in the FCT? That is then when you have the border to talk, not when you have not fulfilled your own obligation. And two, all those agents collecting revenue, we have to sit down. I have to look everything. The revenue leakages, I will stop it. I will stop it. Because we need money to build infrastructure in FCT. We need to bring the parks back.
The former River State governor's warning also went out to landowners who had taken over the green areas to build properties, saying those areas must come back.
Well, joining us from our Abuja studio is the CEO of Vista Resources Integrated Consultancy and Policy Analyst, Dayo Alao. Good morning, Dayo. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Now, when you saw the Minister of the FCT, former Governor Nyesom Wike, blowing hot with regards to how he was going to step on toes, how it is that he was going to restore the FCT Masterplan, and some other issues with regards to restoring the green area, addressing the matter of grazing, what was your impression of what he said?
I actually found it very interesting. For me, it's about time, something was done about the state of the infrastructure in Abuja, since the original infrastructure master plan was put in place. I know that a few reviews have been done, but no proper updates to sort of take stock of where we are today in terms of the spread of the shanty towns. I'm sure we're all aware that, Abuja was originally, planned to take about 3.1 million residents and about 350,000 people. The original residents of Abuja were meant to be relocated. But over the years, this hasn't been the case. Hence, we have had different developments of various shanty towns around, the main urban areas. So I think I was a bit excited, but, for me, it will be interesting to see what the Honorable Minister is going to do slightly different from other ministers. I know that under the then FCT Minister, Governor El-Rufai, he actually pushed to clean up, a lot of the elements of these shanty towns in Abuja. But if you don't provide proper low-cost housing for the service workers, then we will be facing the same thing. And, Abuja is still growing, on a daily basis. You have an influx of various, service people coming in. So it will be good to, first of all, understand the long-term or the medium-term to long-term strategy of the Honorable Minister in achieving these statements.
Yeah, so I'd like you to expatiate on some of the things that you said, because while Nyesom Wike, the FCT Minister, is planning to sanitize and improve security in Abuja, what factors do you think he needs to, take cognizance of while revisiting or updating the master plan for Abuja's development?
So I think, a couple of factors, funding. How do you fund the right infrastructure for the FCT? So I think, we need to revisit the master plan and review how we are going to fund this. In recent times, there have been a few sort of collaborations with various developers. So, for example, within the Guzape area, I know that the ENL has done something recently with the FHA. So it will be, those models could be looked at because those are the models that could help us to sort of look at, developing low-cost housing estates. But we also have to take into cognizance, the illegal structures that have been propping up. Some of this, by the low to middle income service residents of Abuja, but also some of this by land grabbers in terms of estate developers, and some of this by other influential people. So, referring back to his statement about he doesn't care who you are, he's just going to destroy whatever infrastructures that you have put in place. It will be interesting to see, how he structures that. But the key facts to take into cognizance are you have to cater for the service elements of the inhabitants of Abuja, because without the service elements, you can't run the city successfully. So it will be very, very interesting to see how we match the housing, deficit for the low to middle income inhabitants with also balancing, improving the infrastructure that currently exists. So to take a few things into cognizance, the first one will be ensuring that, illegal infrastructures are properly removed. Or, for example, I'm sure we're all aware of, what happened recently this year. There was a flood in Lugbe because there were illegal, estates that have been built over a watershed. So we have to take into cognizance that. So I think he needs to pull together a team that will sit back, look at how to improve this housing deficit, and then also determine how to fund it properly.
Interesting, because looking at the pulling down of illegal structures, a report said that the federal government may revoke land allocation of 6,000 buildings in slums in Idu, Apo, Nyanya, 27 others may be affected. And those are areas that we see some of these natives are actually leaving as it is, because that is where they can afford. And they went ahead to even appeal to the minister to take into cognizance their plight, so to speak. I'm wondering how you would want the minister, the FCT minister, to put into cognizance the plight of natives, like you have mentioned earlier, puts in some buffer for them, as well as look at removing illegal structures, because the structures have to be removed, whether we like it or not, if we say we want to indeed restore the master plan. How do you see him balancing this act?
So I think that's a great question, because what you don't want to create is panic amongst the inhabitants of, some of the slums, because we have many of them that have, propped up right alongside the key residential areas like Sokoros, Metama, Mabushi, etc. So what I would recommend is, to sort of constitute a small team. It doesn't have to be a big team, to, sort of draw up a roadmap where the original plan to have like low-cost housing on the outskirts of the town are put into place. And then, over a period of time, I mean, anything that we are going to do should not be drastic, because it would immediately create a rancor amongst the residents of these areas, which will further, increase the crime rate, increase, the satisfaction with the government, and a lot of people are already under pressure right now. So whatever is going to be done has to be strategically done over the medium term to the longer term. To make it evident to people, we have to come up with a plan that is shared with all the stakeholders, and we take into cognizance their own comments and feedback on how these plans are going to be implemented over the medium term to the long term, and then put in place these strategies to build proper low-cost housing estates that would house these inhabitants in the original proposed areas from the original master plan. So I would start off with doing a review of the master plan and identifying the areas where we can create low-cost housing, and then, over the medium term again, so I'm looking at minimum like 12 months to start to sort of ensure that you provide low-cost housing in these areas before we start to drastically destroy, what is currently existing.
So when we talk about low-cost housing, it can be very much a relative term, because Abuja, looking at a strategic position, it looks like it might be gentrified at the end of the day. So where we'll have people who are well-to-do, and it might also displace the low-income earners. So what exactly do you think looking at social inclusivity, how can Abuja's development foster that sense of community and cultural diversity while maintaining its status as political center of the nation? Because we have a lot of people who are from different backgrounds in Abuja currently.
Well, I think that's dependent on the communication strategy that he puts in place. It's important that you carry all the stakeholders along and create the awareness of the purpose and the benefits of putting in place this low-cost housing. So instead of just going about destroying already existing infrastructure in these areas, it would be good to communicate to people that this is the plan. I mean, like, if we enter into these slums, they are characterized by violence, crime, various illnesses, sicknesses. So when people understand the benefits of why you are looking to relocate them, they would align with whatever plans you put in place.
Now, he spoke about the matter of grazing, how it is that there's been grazing over the green area in the FCT, and that he was going to ensure that the green area is restored, and he will move these herders outside of the FCT. And we know that when we talk about grazing, it's a sensitive issue with a majority of persons who actually engage in it. How should he go about this matter? We know, yes, the FCT shouldn't have that kind of picture where you see cattle grazing, but how challenging do you think it might be for him?
I mean, that's a very interesting question, considering what we've seen over the last couple of years with the herder clashes in various communities across the country. So ideally, you want to have a synchronized plan, one that aligns with, what the federal government is currently planning in terms of managing the herders, creating various sort of ranching and grazing sites in on the outskirts of the town. So, I mean, ideally what you want to do is to, again, as part of this strategic medium to long-term plan of improving the infrastructure in Abuja and ensuring that we align back to the original plan, it will be good to sort of, get representatives or stakeholders to sit at the table with them, propose the plan of where you are going to have the grazing routes, and then, start to sort of, eradicate the current nuisances that we have in Abuja. So it has to be very strategic. It has to be well thought out. You have to carry various stakeholders along. So it's all about, I mean, I'm sure we all know when we say if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So I would say the Honorable Minister will need to put a good team together, because I think it was in 2005 that a team was put together to sort of review the existing infrastructure master plan. But when this team was constituted, it did not have the right participants like the urban planners, infrastructure finance experts on that team. So it will be good for the Honorable Minister to put together a team. Again, we shouldn't go about having a big exercise where, we're at it for like 1 year with all the fanfares we normally do in Nigeria, but have a focused team of experts, the urban planning experts, some infrastructure finance specialists, and various advisors that can put together a clear exit plan from where we are into where we really want to be.
So most of all of these plans, if put on the table, cannot be sustained without having people investing in some of this infrastructure and some things that we're putting on ground. So looking at economic diversification, we know that Abuja has about 7 secretariats, namely the rural, the transport, agriculture, rural development, etc. But but then how can Abuja's development be leveraged to attract direct investment or diverse industries and create sustainable economic ecosystem beyond these government offices?
Again, I think, very interesting and really good question, So initially, when I was asked to appear here, my own thoughts were, we need to attract the right investment into Abuja. And, threats of, insecurity and improper infrastructure has been a detriment to development, not only in Abuja, but across Nigeria generally. So again, as part of what I'm suggesting in terms of putting together a medium-term to a long-term strategy to review the existing plan and identify what can be done in the immediate to short term, to the medium term, that doesn't currently disrupt completely what is existing and what day-to-day life in Abuja. You will need to also have a longer-term plan that would attract investors. If you have the right infrastructure in place, there is security in Abuja, you will definitely attract investors. Being, trade and infrastructure finance specialist myself, I understand what it takes, in terms of attracting FDI, because people are concerned about the security of their investment. So if you have a plan in place that sends the right message to the investment community in terms of what your development plan is, I'm sure we will get a lot of, interest in investing in Abuja.
Now, the aspect of corruption has also been brought to the fore with some of the developments that the FCT hasn't recorded over the years. If you hear the minister, we heard him say that some persons, he's going to block loopholes when it comes to revenue generation, and that he was going to ensure those who were involved in fraudulent activities such as the sale of lands, who make huge amounts of money, he was going to also address that. And we know how it is addressing matters of corruption in this part of the world, how several years we have talked about addressing corruption, blocking loopholes and all of it. What do you expect to see, and what do you think might be the challenge when he's talking about these loopholes that has to be blocked, such that FCT can generate that revenue that will be for the betterment of the natives and of the whole of Nigeria as a whole, basically?
So this problem is not only, pertinent to Abuja. It's a problem that we have across the nation. Ensuring that we increase transparency and accountability in the management of public funds is something that is very important. I think there are a number of elements or issues that contribute to this. There is the issue of overlapping mandates, so where a lot of times you have various agencies, with overlapping mandates doing, sort of conflicting with each other. So for example, if you speak to the Abuja, I think, Environmental Protection Board about, the lightings, or you speak to FCT about the lighting, they say, oh, we have replaced all the bulbs, so there should be light in Abuja. It's AEDC that doesn't supply light to a lot of the street lamps across Abuja. So if you speak to AMAC about different things, they will tell you that, oh, it is AEPB's responsibility. And then in other areas, you have various overlapping mandates where you have, various agencies stretching what their mandates should be into other areas. And this creates a confusion in terms of, revenue collection, because, residents are tired of being overtaxed and getting various demands from various agencies, and there's no transparency in terms of, what the revenue collection is, who is collecting what revenue from who. So that will also need to be taken into consideration as he develops the plan for improving the infrastructure in Abuja. So, and this is a problem that, again, like I said before, is, not only pertinent to Abuja, but across Nigeria, where we have to, have clearer or more transparent and accountable frameworks in revenue collection and also in expenditure. So yes, it should be taken into context as he develops his own plan. It'll be interesting to see how he puts together a team and then also develops his own strategy over the medium term to longer term for, doing all of these things.
Well, the FCT carved out from, different states in Nigeria, namely Plateau, Niger, Kwara, etc. There are a lot of, it shows that there will be diversity in culture, and there will be a lot of tourist attraction, tourist area in Abuja. Do you feel that, the incumbent FCT minister can tap into this area so that, looking at Abuja's cultural diversity, to be able to showcase through events, festivals and artistic initiatives that will enrich the city's social fabric?
I think tourism is an area that, has lacked the right kind of focus that we should be putting into it in Nigeria. So countries like Dubai, the UAE have mastered, bringing in tourism as a huge revenue, source of revenue. So as part of his plan and his strategy to develop these green areas, I would expect that, you would also send the right messages to the inhabitants, but also prospective investors and prospective tourists. And we should look at, developing, following the original plan, which has some green areas that were marked, for our tourist sites. Nigeria generally has so many beautiful tourist attractions. So if you improve the infrastructure, improve security, and focus on having the right, development plan in place, and then, of course, where we've always suffered is in implementation. If we focus on implementing whatever plan is put together, and that is done, it will send the right message to both investors and tourists alike to come into Abuja. So I think, right, Abuja still is one of the most beautiful cities in Nigeria. So with the right, leader at the helm, and with the statements that the Honorable Minister has made, he could, turn out if he pushes through with his plans.
Wrap up our conversation now. We must end this conversation here. Dayo Alao, CEO, Vista Resources Integrated Consultancy Policy Analyst. Thank you so much for your time on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.